Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I don't even know where to begin. Now, up front, I'm going to say that this does do fan service, and it does it pretty well. And there's some other elements here that I found wonderful, delightful, incredible, and creative. And then there were other elements that I was, well, almost audibly sighing from being annoyed. But overall, I'll just say up front, this is a good, mostly good film. Want to find out the rest? Because I saw a movie, so you shouldn't have to. And this one, you may want to. Here we go. As I said during the intro, this film is okay. I had a lot of fun. It is a good family movie. It's something you can take your kids to if you don't mind that they hear a couple of troubling words and some strange allusions to some things that maybe you haven't discussed in your household yet. I saw the movie, so you wouldn't have to, but this might be something that you can risk taking, a 12-year-old or maybe even down to a mature 10-year-old and up to go and see. Some people in my theater thought that this film was okay to bring very young children, very unruly, unbehaved children to this film experience. And while that did bother me a little bit, it certainly didn't affect my enjoyment overall of the movie as a movie. We're going to start with a few things that you might consider spoilers. So if you want absolutely no understanding of what's happening, well, then you're going to want to avoid pretty much the rest of this video until the end. And I'll ask Grant to put spoilers down towards the bottom here so that you can avoid some things maybe you don't want to hear. But I promise it's not going to be very spoilery because I want people to go and see this for the most part. But if you remember when Ghostbusters came out and we got Ghostbusters 2 out there, and you remember that maybe Ghostbusters was one of the best films you'd seen at the time, Ghostbusters 2 wasn't quite as good, that's kind of where we are with this. In fact, you're going to be introduced way back in the 1900s to something called the Manhattan Adventurers Society. And that sets up or establishes kind of everything else that's happening in the background, along with, well, a magical protector of sorts, which you don't really get a chance to learn about until well into the later part of the second act or third act. I will say that the actors that I would have found annoying in anything were annoying in this, but at least there's only about a solid 8 to 10 minutes of Patton Oswalt total, and I think that's more than enough Patton Oswalt for anybody to take. Of course, everything is always centered around the firehouse. The firehouse has always been where the containment field is, and we are introduced to the idea that maybe the containment system in the firehouse is full and it's going to need to be replaced. Now, of course, the kids and the adults are out playing Ghostbusters and taking care of some things along the way, but ultimately we run into Mayor Atherton now, who used to be with the EPA and is now the mayor of the town and just continues to have a hate-filled, rage towards the Ghostbusters. And, he serves his purpose in this film and, as he did before, has to eat crow at the very end of it. That probably was a little spoilery for you, but you'll find out why, and I'm sure you wouldn't be that surprised. So there's a lot of different kinds of ghosts you're introduced to, and you're introduced to the idea that there are a lot of people that play around in this paranormal area, and they've been happening for a long, long time, and this creature that you're facing is an existential destructive force, very similar to the last, real Ghostbuster films, the last other three anyway that exist in my mind canon. I don't know if you consider the 2016 to be something that was, a Ghostbusters film. I certainly don't, and I think, probably those people don't either. But the firehouse is the center of it all, as always. Now, there is one trope that bothered me here, and that is one of the things that we've been introduced to in the intersectional area of things, and that's Phoebe's going to be one of the most important characters, and basically inheriting the mantle of brilliance from her grandfather in this case. And to be fair, it really didn't bother me in the way the film was put together. I think Jason and Ivan handled this very, very well. And I think the direction of the film was okay. The cinematography worked. There were some very much too dark scenes in here, probably covering up for some CGI blur, maybe something like that. But the effects overall were fantastic, and you do get a lot of that fan service I was talking about. There are some callbacks to the previous film. Ray is confronted again in the library by the librarian who tells him to hush, obviously not forgetting that. And there are other things there as well. And if you like Slimer, well, you get Slimer. So a lot of kids in the audience were flipping out over that. And again, a little bit disruptive, but it's fine. It's going to be a family movie. I'm not a curmudgeon. I'm glad that they enjoyed it, and I think the adults did too. So as we move throughout, you're going to see a lot of references and also see some things that came along from the previous film, including the little miniature Stay Puffs. They are exactly there to be exactly what you think, a toy item, a toy sale. And probably Slimer is too, and maybe a couple of the other ghosts that are in here as well. And there is a lot of comedy here. There's more comedy than the previous film. And look, Paul Rudd's starting to wear thin on me as just a guy that plays Paul Rudd all the time. And that's just something with me. Everybody else here wasn't really asked to do a whole lot. The stories carried forward through the old characters as well as the new. And once again, you know, you get that moment where you get all the old people together to do something pretty cool. Obviously, except for a particular doctor that's missing. But I'm going to say this, Venkman got to be Venkman, and he didn't have to be there very much. I imagined all of his shots probably took no more than 3 days. And good for him for making a paycheck for that. Regardless, you have an existential creature that's going to basically create a new ice age and have ghosts rule the planet. Everything that you saw in the trailer is exactly what this movie revolves around. Now, there are some things that are weird, and you'll have to watch the film for yourself, unfortunately, if you want to figure out if I'm wrong. But there was a dalliance with a weird energy between Phoebe and a female apparition. She ends up playing chess with the apparition. The apparition actually ends up working with the bad guy, and I'm not going to spoil that any further, but it is kind of odd. And then in the end, you know, things get right, and you'll have to see the film to know what I'm talking about there. But anyway, this apparition's name is Melody, and she seemingly expired in a fire that may have been in the diner that her family owned, and it burned down. It took out her entire family and her, but it's only her that hasn't moved on yet. So again, everything centers around the firehouse and this strange fascination that this otherworldly creature has with it. And again, trying to make not just the old firehouse building a problem, but also the new research center that Winston's put together for the team. And you're going to see a lot of interesting things, including that orb. That orb is the center of everything, and there's a reason it is made of what it's made of, and you'll find all of that out in the film. Let's get to the film itself. There's plenty of action. There's plenty of ghost-busting action. There's plenty of dynamics that are kind of compressed into a few elements of the film. An opportunity for Paul Rudd to play dad in various points, and just kind of again another coming of age tale specifically for Phoebe in this instance. We are revisited by Podcast and a few of the other characters that we were introduced to in the previous film, but they don't weigh it down. What weighs this film down is maybe a little too much fan service, but all in all, it did work. Everything about the film felt like a Ghostbusters film. And again, I said the direction was fine, the writing was okay. Again, it weighted down by some uneven pacing throughout. There were some scenes that you really could cut out and you wouldn't be missed at all. And some of the moments where the adults are interacting felt superfluous. What most people are going to have difficulty with is that it isn't the last movie. And I said that at the beginning of the review. It doesn't have the same gravitas as the first film, probably because too much was stuffed in there. And it runs just under 2 hours. It is right in the wheelhouse to be enjoyable and not be too long. But with a few cuts here and there, tightening it up a little bit, it could have been even better. I will say this, the girl that plays Phoebe does a great job. And the kid from Stranger Things also does a great job. But outside of that, I would say the older group of Ghostbusters really really are there to carry things off. And a couple of new characters, or one specifically that's introduced in this film, is again just kind of there to carry some water to move the plot forward. I do think that there are some interesting things that they could explore in a third movie, but by the time I got done watching this film, I was like, there's really no need for a third one. We have a lot of resolution, but I know Sony's going to try to force a third one in on us. I do think there's no need to bring back the older Ghostbusters, maybe for cameos, if you do try to make a third film, but I think the audience probably feels like they've had, closure plus at this point. And on that note, let's get down to the ratings, because I think you probably want to know that. I think this sits at about 3.5 stars. It's almost a 4. I may change my mind on my star rating, but somewhere between, out of 5 stars, somewhere between 3.5 and 4 stars. Why? Well, because outside of being just plain enjoyable popcorn film, there are some elements there that just made you go, And again, I mentioned before the odd relationship between Phoebe and this female apparition, and I'm not sure that things weren't cut out of the film, the editing process, to get rid of some things that the audience, some of the audience, could have found difficult to get excited about there. Out of 10, which what a lot of people like out of a 10, this is going to be, like I said, 7 out of 10. I said that at towards the beginning of the review. 7 out of 10 is probably a fair rating. That's that 3.5 star rating. It could earn an 8, but it's really hard for me to jump over some of the things that happened in the film. But it's better than average. It's probably so far one of the better movies of this year. That's not saying a lot. There haven't been any real standouts, but it does have me looking forward to at least 2 or 3 more films for the year, although I'm getting less excited about what's going on with Deadpool and Wolverine, but we'll talk about that in another video. Obviously, I saw a movie, so you wouldn't have to. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. I would love your feedback on this one, because I think there's a lot to talk about here, especially after you've seen it. Now, you've probably also seen me at this point live on at least 1 or 2 channels talking about this movie, but probably not with this kind of depth. So if you wouldn't mind, be sure to hit the thumbs up button down there. And if you're not subscribed, take this time, this moment, just to click down there on that red button that says and turn it to gray. Hopefully I'll get to 25K by the end of the month. That would be an incredible present for me from you. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, see ya!